the amount required to fund the housing sector in Nigeria and bridge the estimated 28 million unit housing deficit is supposedly 21 trillion naira. This according to the federal government of Nigeria through its Bank of Industry. In a report on Nigeria's housing sector put together by the BOI, the bank explained that, quote, with a growing urban population, increasing construction costs and declining household income, access to affordable housing is becoming more difficult for millions of citizens. Joining us to discuss further, Ugo Aliogo, Public Policy Analyst. Ugo, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, so let's start with housing. 21 trillion naira. That's a large figure.
28 million housing.
Yeah, it's been 17 for forever. Now they finally bumped it up to 28. They've been saying 17 million units. Well, what do you make of the deficit or how to plug it?
So that deficit is huge.
Yeah.
You know, for our population,
Yep.
200 million, that deficit is huge. But however, there's a way out.
Okay.
So the first is to design a policy blueprint on housing. How do we want to build our housing deficit? How do we want to address it? So that blueprint has to be localized. It has to be something peculiar to us. We shouldn't copy. For different societies, they have their own policy blueprints on how to address housing.
Yeah.
So we should design the policy blueprints. And then this administration, the Federal Ministry of Housing, they've done some measurable efforts in the area of addressing the housing deficit.
Yeah.
So we should design first the policy blueprints and then complement it with what the Ministry of Housing has done.
Yeah.
And then not so just design the policy, then we should now look at partnering with the organized private sector in the area of housing. The real estate sector will have a lot of private sector partners that have done a lot in that space. So we should look at partnerships. Then we'll now look at subsidizing the interest rates, you know, for players in that sector.
Subsidy is a dangerous word, though.
Now,
well, yeah, keep going.
Now, why I'm talking about subsidizing the interest rate is because many of these real estate players, they import raw materials for building from Europe.
Yeah.
And then, so when you subsidize the interest rate for them, it makes it easier.
Okay.
Right? And then CBN should be commended in that effort. A lot is being done. As of last week, they've tried to bring down the interest rate, which is quite commendable. And then if you can go a little bit lower, it's going to help players in that space.
Yeah. And
then we'll now look at how to bring in, the mortgage banks are there also as well. Then we'll have the insurance sector. And then we'll now look at how do we produce some of these raw materials used in building. How do we produce it in Nigeria? We'll look at how to revitalize some of those sectors that were producing raw materials. There are a lot of raw materials that we can produce in Nigeria. It will reduce our dependency on imported raw materials. And then that will help to create jobs. That will help to build a growing industry. And we'll achieve our housing deficit in time.
Okay, optimistic. There is that other real estate report stating that, well, rent is still going to increase, and also, I guess, land is going to appreciate. What do you make of that report on the real estate sector?
Well, that report, it comes in an appropriate time for players in the sector, both private sector and then the public sector, to decide how to address this. We'll have a problem on our hand. We'll have 28 million housing deficit. If we're able to address that, I think that will take care of the other problem. So the problems are intertwined. If we're able to address one, it's take care of the other. So I feel it's for consultation, it's for better consideration. Let them come together and discuss on how to address the issue of the spike in rent. And then developing a blueprint would also create some measure of addressing the problem. So that's what I feel in that area. It's not something that would create panic in the sector, quite frankly. It's something that would require a lot of policy harmonization. It's something that would require a lot of discussions, right? And then it will be addressed.
If you're a landlord, though, or an investor in that sector, you would smile to hear that rent is going up because more income is coming to you.
So on the flip side, there's growth for players in the sector. But on the negative side, for the consumer, the household income is there's a huge challenge, you know. So it's not favoring one. It's not favoring one side while it's favoring the other side. So I mean, there should be a lot of discussion. There should be a lot of harmonization. That's why I talked about policy harmonization. There should be harmonization around something favorable for everybody. So every player in the sector can smile. at the end of the day.
Okay. Let's talk about this, the NECA saying that foreign exchange should be prioritized to productive sectors like manufacturing and others. What do you make of the comments of the NECA? Should they prioritize those FX sectors?
There is need to prioritize.
Yeah.
You know, because if you look at the FX issue, it has been giving a lot of manufacturers who try to obtain from it has been giving a lot of nightmare. Not just manufacturers, there's also those who want to pay school fees abroad. There's also those who want to go abroad for medical care. Yeah. So it has been giving a lot of nightmare. So, but if it's prioritized, it will help those manufacturers to import. And then when it helps them to import, it would now address the issue of the high cost in prices of commodities that are imported. And then when it addresses the high cost of product, it would address a lot of things. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Quite frankly, CBN is making some commensurate efforts, you know, but the challenge is that there's huge demand. Yeah. And then there are conversations in some quarters that the FX available, right, is not enough to meet the demand, you know, of people who have pushed for FX. So I think if CBN address it, it would help to support manufacturing, and then it would help to ameliorate the challenges they go through in getting FX. Well,
what about the other headwinds? So oil theft is not allowing us to earn enough revenue to defend the currency. You've got, in fact, we should actually bring in the speculators, because the EFCC apparently is clamping down on them. High level of money supply, our import demand, you know, our taste for foreign. Exactly. So isn't all that in the mix? I think the main thing is the main thing not boosting supply of dollars. So try to export more to get more dollars into the country.
The main thing is getting enough supply. You know, dollar liquidity.
Right. Exactly.
That's the main issue. And then on the flip side, it will cause a decrease for the black market operators. You know, so if there's FS liquidity, it will help a lot to address a lot of things. Because you go to the market, you want to buy some things, you want to do something, and then people are telling you, dollar is this and dollar. So FS liquidity would help not just manufacturers, it will help those who want to do transactions abroad. So it would help to address a lot of things. And then for the issue of oil theft, it has been a problem. Right? It has been a problem. But I think the CBN they have a way around addressing this FS liquidity. There should be conscious policy framework to address this. I feel it's not a problem that would consume us as a people. I feel it's something that with a conscious policy effort, CBN can address it.
Any worries on round tripping, whereby if a certain sector is asking to get foreign exchange at the official rates, 420, 425, maybe 430, they then take it and go and sell it on the black market at I think it's this morning I'm hearing we're at 660 or so, 650. So what about that fear that some people may not honestly use the FX that they are allocated and instead use it to just make profits and not? Because there have been some allegations that not all in the manufacturing sector are actually using the funds that they get for that, and they're essentially just taking it to a round trip. So briefly, what do you make of that as far as making sure this is getting to the honest people in the sector?
I think there was effort by the EFCC last week to clamp down on those who are having FX, to clamp down on those who are hoarding it, you know, to address the issue of scarcity. You know, so, and then there is a risk of arrest by EFCC. I think EFCC should step up. You know, they've done a lot of effort as of last week. I think they should step up and then address that issue, so that would address the issue of foreign scarcity.
Fantastic. Public policy analyst Ugo Aliogo. Ugo, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.